Really quickly, before we jump into today's video, I just wanted to remind you guys that you can still use my creator code on the EA app. Currently, there is a pretty big sale going on and some quite big packs, including businesses and hobbies, have a pretty decent percentage off. And so if you are thinking about maybe picking something up in the sale, or maybe you're thinking about getting the new expansion pack, my code does also work on pre-orders too. If you use code Jessicapie at checkout, it helps directly support me and my channel and all the builds that I make, as I do earn a small commission fee from your purchase. I say this pretty much every single time I mention it, but again, I just wanted to thank everyone that has used my code in the past, or even if you're considering using it in the future. It's just really lovely for you to think of me when, you buy your Sims packs, and so a really big thank you. But because I've said all this, I just want to say that this section of the video is sponsored by the EA Creator Network. But anyway, let's get into the video. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Oasis Springs, which is one of the base game worlds, and I'm going to be building a split level mid-century modern family home. So this house ends up having 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms, and it's built on a 30 by 20 lot. Now this week I just thought it would be really fun to come into the game and build something in a little bit more of a kind of like retro, a little bit of a nostalgic kind of house. Now, I'm building a mid-century modern home, and the thing is, me personally, I love mid-century modern, like the style of it. I appreciate it so much, it is just so beautiful. But when it comes around to actually building a house dedicated to this style, must admit it's a little bit intimidating, because although I love this style, I'm just always a little bit worried about how I'm going to be able to put it off and if I'm going to be able to do this beautiful style justice. And so I don't typically tend to build mid-century modern houses, but this week came into the game, I started building, and I am just absolutely obsessed with this house. Like, the interior of it was so much fun to decorate. I feel like this is probably one of my best interiors that I think I've ever done. I just had the absolute time of my life building this, and so I really hope you guys like it. But anyway, moving on from that and getting on and talking a little bit more about the build itself and also what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've already done the main shell of the house already. One of the things that really inspired me to build something in a more almost like mid-century modern style this week was this brown wallpaper that you can see that I've used on this back wall over here. This is new, by the way, and I wanted to highlight this because if you open up the game this week and you do like literally 10 minutes worth of tasks, you can get this brand new free wallpaper. There's this new event going on called Nature's Calling, I think its name is, but basically throughout game you have to do a series of different quests, and you pop to the park and you fish in the lake, and you just basically do some very simple side quests basically, and then you get points, and then it unlocks you different things. And one of the things that it unlocks you in the first week is that really lovely like wooden wallpaper that I've got on almost like the top section of the house. This is like our 3rd or 4th different like timed event like this in the game, where basically the Sims team will give us, I think it's like 2 months or something to do all these different tasks, and then when you do the task you kind of unlock different things. It's purely base game, by the way. If you do have some DLCs, there's like optional extra things that you can do, but it's not really required. But this week I popped into my game, I quickly did the first week of the task, saw this wallpaper, thought it was beautiful, and it kind of inspired me to build this house. And ironically, I didn't actually end up keeping that wallpaper. I ended up switching it out for one that we got from Eco Lifestyle, but I just wanted to mention it just in case you're someone that maybe doesn't have a ton of packs in the game and you've only got the Sims 4 base game. If you do this new event, it's free content, so you might as well. No rush to do it straight away, because I feel like we've got, I think, like 2 months or something, but just to let you know that there is some free content that you can basically get from just logging into the game. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've moved on into the inside of this house, and I'm currently coming in and doing the floor plan. I am absolutely obsessed with the layout of this house, which sounds really silly to say, but I feel like in terms of gameplay, this floor plan is just so like easy to maneuver your way around, and it's not too big, it's a decent size. But then on the inside of this house you've got plenty of activities. It's just overall the floor plan of this house yeah, I really enjoy. You kind of walk into kind of like the initial entrance hallway. If you pop to the left, you've got the lounge room. I made it so it's got a sunken lounge. I'm building a mid-century modern home. I felt like it was only essential to have a sunken lounge space. And so, yeah, we have a little sunken lounge on the left-hand side. But if you pop over to the right, if you go right again, you have the sunken dining room. Multiple different like split level sections in this home, but then off the dining room we've got the kitchen, and then just off the kitchen we've got like a little utility room. We've got the master bedroom downstairs and an ensuite, and then upstairs we have the other 2 bedrooms, another bathroom, and then also a home office. Of course, if you wanted to, you could transform the home office and make it into another bedroom, which at one point I was debating doing, and for the storyline for The Sims that I was thinking could potentially live in this house, I have an idea that they might one day be transforming that office into another kid's bedroom, because when I was building this I was personally imagining that 2 guys live here, married couple, and they've adopted 2 teenagers, but they're currently going through the almost like process of thinking about potentially adopting a third. And so maybe one day they're going to transform that home office and make it into another bedroom. And then the little garage space downstairs, which you can see for the garage, I've just used these really big white doors that we got from the Snowy Escape expansion pack. On the inside, I just made it into a regular garage. I made it so there's a woodworking table in there, and then also a retro looking fridge, which I imagine that this couple are going through the process of restoring, because they really wanted to have kind of like a dark green fridge in their kitchen, but they're just kind of like restoring it or something. But the garage is just a garage, but maybe one day the home office upstairs could be transformed into a bedroom, and then the garage space could then become the home office. Although saying that, I must admit, if I was to play through this family's almost like storyline, I probably wouldn't do that, just because the home office that is on the upstairs level is by far one of my favourite offices that I've ever decorated. It is just so like cool and trendy up there, and it has the best views, just kind of like overlooking all the rocks in the distance, all these different palm trees. There's a little bit of like a fountain moment going on in the neighbourhood, you can see that as well. It is just, it's absolutely beautiful. But then saying that, I'm so obsessed with this house, and I'm really excited to share it, because yeah, like I said, I don't regularly build mid-century modern homes because the style to me is just so intimidating, and I'm always just so worried that I'm never going to be able to do it justice. But for this build, you best believe I was on Pinterest for every single room. Like my Pinterest this past week was mid-century hallway, mid-century kitchen, mid-century bathroom, living, like literally every single room in the house. I was trying to gather as much inspiration as I could possible, and just, yeah, try and do this style of home justice. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I kind of finished up the front section of the build, and now I've popped over to the back garden. I must admit, this back garden, it was an absolute faff for me. Like I really struggled trying to lay out the garden space. It kind of all stemmed from the way that the house is built, because technically, even though it really looks like it's a 2-story home, but there's actually 3 different levels to the house. So you might notice the way that I actually built the main structure, I came in and I just basically built this massive square, and then straight away I popped on upstairs and then built what looks to be the ground level, but it's actually technically the 2nd level. But then with doing that, I use a lot of different terrain manipulation, and the house is pretty much built on a little bit of a hill. And then when it came around to doing the back garden, it was just, yeah, it was a little bit of a nightmare. And I did attempt the back garden multiple different times. I mean, I cut them all out because some of the attempts were a little bit atrocious, to be honest with you. But in the end, I'm happy with how the garden looks. But yeah, it was definitely one of them ones that it took its time, and it was definitely like it took a minute basically to get the garden to be how it is. Initially I was going to have the swimming pool over here where I've got these curvy flower beds, but I just didn't like the way that it was looking kind of like up against them back windows of the home. So I placed down these flower beds, and then you can see them coming in and basically just landscaping them. I tried to keep the landscaping to be quite minimal but still fully landscaped, if that makes sense. Because even though landscaping is one of my favourite things to do when it comes around to actually building in the game, I didn't want to go over the top. We are building an Oasis Springs, which is like a desert-based world, and you know, I don't imagine that these plants, if they get watered, it'll be via a watering can rather than rain, because in my experience, whenever I play in Oasis Springs, it's pretty much like Sims before we got the Seasons expansion pack. Like, it's literally just sunny all the time. It never seems to rain, it never snows in this world. There might be like one day out of the Sims year that it might randomly just start snowing, maybe a little bit windy, but yeah, for the most part, I imagine that all the different landscaping items would just be either cactuses or ferns that can kind of survive in the higher climate or something. But you can see as well, I did place down a swimming pool. I just shifted it over to almost by where the big sliding glass doors are, but then also in this back garden we end up having some sun lounges. I also placed down some little plant pots, and then also a barbecue area and a little seating area. Like I said, I just really struggled when it came around to in this back garden, because a lot of mid-century houses that I was seeing on Pinterest, in their back garden they have curvy swimming pools, which we can actually do now in the game. Like, we've got curved pools like as a feature with, well, it actually came with the Lovestruck expansion pack, but it was kind of like a base game add-on, and we can have curvy pools, but they kind of have to be a certain size, and it wouldn't have worked for the back garden space, because even though there is a garden, it is quite limited. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you've got a swimming pool, you've got some sun lounges, you can plant some things in the little planter pots, and then also have a barbecue. But by the front, like, garage section, I don't know if you will notice, but I did pop back out there and I added in a basketball hoop, and so it's kind of like an extra activity if your Sims like playing basketball. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside, and I've started off by the initial entrance hallway. I knew coming into this build, I really needed to make as much use of these particular set of paintings that we got from the Lovestruck expansion pack, and it was one of them builds where I could actually use my favourite painting in the game, which you can see I've placed down onto the wall, and it seems to be a man standing there with one hand kind of like wrapping behind his head, and then the other one kind of like by his bum, and he's standing there just in his boxers. It's such a cool painting, and it's actually my favourite painting that we've got in the game. But the thing is with it, I can't use it. Well, I can, but I don't feel like it's appropriate to use in, say, like a happy little, you know, middle-aged couple's suburban family home. Like, it's not really that kind of painting. It's more of a extravagant painting, and for this build, yeah, I knew coming into it that I could use all the different Lovestruck paintings that we have in the game. And so you would have seen I placed it onto the wall by the side table, and then I also angled a mirror to make it look like it's kind of like leaning up against the painting. And then over in this section, I currently have a live edit tree merged into this big vase. Now, you will see I do end up changing this section, but basically when I was doing this initial kind of like entrance hallway, you know, sit down in that little like leather armchair, put your shoes on or take your shoes off, I really wanted to use this one plant that we got from the Courtyard Oasis kit. But the thing is, it was just so big, and when I was placing it down into that corner, it was causing so many different shadow issues, and it was just an absolute faff. And so in the end, I thought, well, we've actually got a very similar looking tree from the live edit menu, and so I popped that in to a debug like vase that your Sims can find if they ever go exploring the jungle with the Jungle Adventure game pack, and I merged it in and I was happy with it. But then you can see that I've now moved over into the lounge room. I will talk about what I'm doing in just a second, but I end up using the initial Courtyard Oasis big plant tree in this room, and so I end up switching it out to be a base game one. But over here, as you can see, I'm currently coming in and creating a custom fireplace. Now, I've actually noticed a trend that whenever I seem to build anything in a slight modern style in the game, whether it be like an ultra modern fancy house, whether it be a mid-century modern house like this, I always end up making my own fireplace. But for this mid-century lounge room, yeah, I really wanted to have quite a cool built-in fireplace built into the wall, and then have like bookcases on one side of it. And so you can see the way that I've done it is I basically made this 2x1 little room, and then made it so the platform is all the way up. Purposely did it so there is a platform behind this fireplace, because if you're someone like me that likes to play in half wall up, half wall down mode, then in gameplay you can still see all of this. And I knew that I was just going to go to town with trying to create this real mid-century fireplace moment that in the game I would actually want to see it. And so yeah, I made this 2x1 room and then put it onto a platform. And then the way that I've actually made the fireplace come out of the wall is I've got a little window. The one that I've used is from the Snowy Escape expansion pack. I popped it into the platformed room and then sized it down so you couldn't see it, but then kind of like the outline of where the glass would be kind of like disappeared into the wall, kind of like a perfect placement for our fireplace. I then used the fireplace that we got from the Get Together expansion pack, and I believe I sized it down once, so you can either use the bracket key, or if you've got the tool mod, I sized it down by 0.75, and then I kind of like popped it into almost like where the initial window outline would be to kind of cover up that weird awkward cutout in the wall. I then pulled it away slightly, and then the actual fireplace itself, by default, it has some little like logs attached to the bottom of it, and so you can see for the minute, and it does end up changing, but I placed down some Spa Day. They're meant to be like pond decoration slabs. You know, sometimes when you go somewhere really fancy and they've got like a little pond outside, and sometimes they'll have like little stepping stones leading to somewhere. Basically, we've got them from the Spa Day expansion pack, and whenever I do modern builds, I always use them like quite a ton in the builds itself. But I got these Spa Day kind of slabs and then rotated them to kind of cover up them initial log details. But then I kind of like moved over, started doing kind of like the built-in bookcase on the left-hand side, and then my mind just randomly remembered, well, hang on, from the live edit menu with the Wedding Stories game pack, for some reason we have a live edit wall that is the exact same wallpaper as the one that I've got on the wall, which, if you're curious, this kind of like stony wallpaper, I believe off memory, is from the Bowling Night Stuff pack, but randomly from the My Wedding Stories game pack we have it in like a live edit wall. Super handy. But yeah, when I was doing like the little bookcase section, my mind remembered it, and I was like, oh, hang on, I'll just use that to cover up the log details. And so I deleted them slabs that were kind of leaning up against the wall to cover up the logs, and replaced it with the live edit wall from My Wedding Stories. Although I did decide to keep the Spa Day slabs that I placed down on the floor, because, and I don't know if this is the actual reason for it, but you know, sometimes when you have quite a fancy fireplace, there might be some sort of, maybe it's like granite, maybe it's like a little bit of tile kind of on the floor in front of the fireplace. I decided to keep them Spa Day slabs because in my mind I was thinking, well, what about if like sparks from the fireplace like fall out or something? And so I kept the Spa Day slabs on the floor, but then I got some log details, which that little log piece that I've used in front of the fireplace, that is from, again, My Wedding Stories. You can find it in the live edit menu, but I placed that onto it to kind of make it look like it's wood that is yet to be burnt, and then so it looks like the fireplace can actually be functional. You would have seen it quite early on, and it might be a bit confusing because currently the flames aren't there, but you will see them again in a minute. But to make it actually look like it's a functional fireplace, I just got this one lamp from Get Famous, sized it down really small, but it's a lamp that kind of spits out fire. I basically just merged it into the fireplace and leveled it down, and in gameplay it just looks like a fireplace. I really hope that was easy enough to follow along with. It's really hard trying to tell you every single detail of how I did it when the footage is just, you know, is sped up so much. But if I faffed that up and you've got any questions, feel free to ask me, and hopefully I will explain it better in the comments if I didn't explain it well enough. But yeah, I tried to make it look like there is a functional fireplace. Now, it isn't actually functional, I don't believe, because the way that I did just put a fireplace into a platform wall, but the way that it looks like a fireplace is from having that Get Famous lamp kind of like merged in, because by default there's always flames, and it actually looks like, yeah, there is a fireplace. And if you want to, you can always extinguish it, but you might have a little bit of a hard time relighting the fireplace. So if I was you, I would just keep it on. But the benefit of it is your Sims, if they want to live in the world of Oasis Springs and they want to have a fireplace on, they're not going to die from heat stroke because they don't get any like moodlet boost from it. But if you do want to have a fireplace moodlet, don't worry, there's other than it being a second fireplace in this house, but it is in the dining room. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the kitchen. So in this kitchen, I believe the terminology for it is galley kitchen or like a hallway kitchen, but it was kind of like the best space for the kitchen in this house. And like I said, in terms of like the floor plan and the layout, I feel like this house is so easy for gameplay. But normally when it comes around to doing kitchens, I always like them to be in a back corner if I can help it, because I like to build houses for, you know, everyone to download and play in and hopefully enjoy. But then also a lot of the houses that I play in myself, cheekily enough, I actually end up playing in myself, and I'm someone that I like to see all the different cabinets on the walls and all the different, you know, like bits and bobs that go into the kitchen. So typically I don't do kitchens in this format where it's kind of like a little bit of a hallway, but luckily enough, with this hallway kitchen, one of the back walls was kind of like a back wall of the building. So yeah, if you're someone like me that likes to play in half wall up, half wall down, you can still see some of the different cabinets, and then also these little shelving units, which I'm currently coming in and just basically cluttering up. Now, like I said, for pretty much every single room in this build, I was just referencing Pinterest, what does a mid-century kitchen look like, and what does a mid-century bathroom or dining room or anything like that. And so I'll find the picture that I was using for this kitchen's inspiration and pop it up on the screen right now so you can kind of see what I was trying to go for. It doesn't end up looking exactly like the picture just because we don't have them exact cabinets in the game, but hopefully you can kind of see similarities between the Pinterest photo that I was referencing, but then also this kitchen as well. But I knew one thing that I wanted to have in this kitchen was a dark green fridge. Sounds really strange, but in my mind, whenever I envision a mid-century house, I always think that the people or the Sims that would live inside of it just love plants, and so there ends up being a lot of plants in this house, don't worry, but in my head, just something about having a mid-century modern home with lots of like dark wooden features, but then also having lots of plants, so that adds greenery, but then also having some kitchen appliances like a fridge or maybe like an oven being a dark green colour just really makes sense in my mind. And so you would have seen initially I was going to use this fridge that we got from the country kitchen kit in kind of like a dark green colour, but then as I was spinning the camera around, I wasn't loving the way it was looking, and so I do decide to switch it out to be one that we got from the Home Chef Hustle Stuff pack. But then it made perfect sense in my mind because, like I said, in the garage I made it to be like a typical workshop garage kind of space, but then I also placed down a dark green fridge in the garage. And so I was thinking, well, maybe this couple, they've decorated their kitchen, but then maybe one of the Sims found like a really old kind of like retro looking fridge somewhere, maybe with like Facebook Marketplace or something, and they really wanted to restore it, and so they will eventually one day have a dark green fridge, but it's currently in the garage and it is yet to be restored. It's a small thing, but I just thought for like a storyline that could be like a really nice thing to add into this household. But either way, as you would have seen, I quickly finished off the kitchen, and I'm actually just now coming in and just finishing off the little half bathroom and utility room space. It's quite small in here. It's got like a toilet and a sink, but then also a washing machine and a tumble dryer. But I just wanted this house to have laundry, and it was kind of like the perfect placement to have it. It's kind of sandwiched in between the lounge room and the kitchen, that little room. But now moving on, I've started coming in and decorating the dining room. So in here, my inspiration for this particular room was kind of a strange one because pretty much I once upon a time watched this one video from Architectural Digest, and it was on Dakota Johnson's house. If you're familiar with 50 Shades, I think her most recent film maybe was Madame Web. She was recently with Chris Martin. Oh, this is actually tea in it. But she was recently with Chris Martin, Coldplay singer, and I think they broke up recently. Hearts broken for both of them. But basically, long story cut short, about 5 years ago, Architectural Digest went to her house and they did a tour of her home, and she lives in such a beautiful kind of like mid-century, I think it's a Californian home. And when I was doing this dining room, I basically used her dining room table and kind of like her space as the inspiration, and it sounds funny because it doesn't even end up looking anything like it. I'll find kind of like a screenshot of her dining room and I'll pop it up on the screen so you can kind of see what I initially was going to go for in this room. It really does end up looking nothing like it. I mean, I completely changed the rug, and the rug choice in this room as well, I don't know if you want to notice, but it took me a good few minutes just to decide on a rug. And I did my method of sometimes when I'm unsure of what I want to go underneath a certain, maybe if it's like a dining room table, maybe it's like a bed area, maybe it's like a lounge or something, and I want to look at all the different rug options. A really handy trick that I do quite often is I'll go into the filters category, kind of located on the bottom right hand side. You can kind of see where it says organized debug on, like the bottom right hand side. But if you go onto the colour section, basically if you filter by colours and you filter all the different colours on, that way you can see all the different rug choices in the game. Because the way that The Sims 4 works, sometimes they will give us a beautiful pattern rug, but it'll be disguised between loads of different swatches, and so sometimes you don't know that there's certain swatches of a rug because the default swatch looks absolutely nothing like it. And so I went through all the different rug swatches. I pulled out a good like 5 or 6 and was debating between them, and then I thought I was going to go for one that we got from the Get Together expansion pack, and I spent, like I said, a good few minutes deciding on a rug, and then I changed it in the end to be one that we got from the Refined Living Room set. It's like a nice neutral plain rug, but in Dakota Johnson's dining room, she's got a plain rug, and so I made it so this dining room also had a plain rug. But over here, as you can see, I'm trying to create kind of like a long, skinny side table. I wanted there to be a radio station somewhere in this room, so say for example the family that lives in this house, maybe they're having a dinner party and maybe they're inviting their friends over and they want to pop on some background noise. I wanted there to be a radio station, but I didn't want to use any of the default radio stations that we have in the game. And the thing is, I use a record player on that little like makeshift side table, but it's one that you have to clip to something for it to be functional, because you know sometimes when you have a radio in the game and you just place it down onto a surface, if it doesn't actually clip to the surface, then for some reason your Sims can't interact with it. And so the way that I kind of did that side table, for the main body of the table itself, I just used some base game cabinets. Your Sims won't place down any like, you know, dirty plates onto there because there's no clipping points. But I placed down these base game cabinets, put them onto the wall, and then so I could actually have the record player be functional, I just found a little bedside table, popped the record player onto the bedside table, and then it moved objects into the kitchen cabinets. That way it's still technically clipping to something and your Sims can interact with the radio station, but yeah, it just looks a little bit nicer in a way. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now started coming in and decorating the first bedroom. Now, I absolutely love this bedroom so much. Like, the screenshots of this room is absolutely beautiful. But, and I'm absolutely gutted that I have to say this. You see that big tree? Well, it's not a tree really. Well, no, it's a palm tree, kind of. But you see the big plant that I popped into the corner? I was so excited to use it in this room because we got it from the Paranormal Stuff pack. And it is so big. And normally you place it down and it makes it just so hard to use in rooms. And I thought in this bedroom I could make it work. I placed it down to the corner. I was loving it. I came around to playtesting and my Sims couldn't get into the bed from the right hand side where it is. And so unfortunately, I did have to delete that palm tree. I replaced it with another palm looking tree that we got from the Growing Together expansion pack. But yeah, I was absolutely gutted about that. But either way, the way that I decorated this room, big fan. I'm a big fan. I'll find the inspiration picture that I had for this bedroom and I'll pop it up on the screen. Again, it doesn't really end up looking that much like it. I tried to do orange pillows on the bed, which, if you're curious, the bed that I use in this room, it's from the Dream Home Decorator game pack. And initially I wanted to have some orange pillows on the bed to kind of look like the picture that I was looking at. But I didn't want to have the pillows in front of the pillows that your Sims would put their heads on, because even though when you're building it will look great, when it comes around to gameplay, me personally, I just don't like it when my Sims' face when they go to sleep just gets merged into pillows. And so I moved objects and pillows on kind of like the headboard, and that's still functional. Like, your Sims can still sleep, and you know, no pillows are going to be clipping into their ear holes when they're trying to catch some sleep. But yeah, I placed down some pillows onto the headboard, and then behind the bed itself, it's kind of like a feature point in the room. I just placed down 3 little tiny mirrors. I think the ones that I've used are from the Tiny Living Stuff pack. But now moving on, I've started coming in and decorating the bathroom. Do you know what? Bathrooms are boring normally. I'm not exactly thrilled when it comes around to decorating bathrooms in the game, but this bathroom I thoroughly enjoyed. And normally whenever it comes around to decorating homes, whenever I do bathrooms, I only ever show you the furnishing for one of them because they're quite boring to watch be decorated. But for this house, I show you the decoration for both of the bathrooms, and it's just, I love it. I think it's because this is a style of bathroom that I have quite literally never decorated before, because I decided to go for wooden walls, the same wooden walls that I've used throughout the rest of the house, but then match it with a dark green wallpaper or like a dark green tile. You know how I say whenever I think of mid-century, I think about a lot of dark features, but then a lot of plants, but then also some green elements. I really tried to kind of tie in the green elements in this bathroom, and I just think it looks so cool. And by the way, if you're curious, I placed down a half wall in front of the bathtub. Bath still works. You can place down a second wall height half wall in front of the bathtub to kind of like close it in and make it feel like a really enclosed area, and it will still be functional. I do change out the bathtub because initially I was going to use one that we got from the Jungle Adventure game pack, but then I switched it out to be one that we got from just the Sims 4 base game. However, I did pop a little shower unit kind of on the back of the bathtub. I placed it down purely for decoration. That shower is not going to be functional. I knew that when I placed it down, but I liked the way that it looked, and so hopefully you don't mind. Of course, you can always delete it. But now moving upstairs, I've now started coming in and decorating the home office. Like I've already said, I am absolutely obsessed with this room. Like, this has got to be the best office I've ever decorated in the game. It's strange because the actual office itself is quite a shallow room. Like, it's not very long, but it is quite wide. And I was, again, looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find the picture for you and I'll pop it up on the screen. And I did this thing, which you'll see in just a second, where I basically used this 3-tile long typically dining table in the game, but I end up merging in some bedside tables, try and make it look like just a really long desk. The tables that I end up going for are ones that we got from the Get to Work expansion pack, weirdly enough, but it just kind of had like this perfect wood tone to match this table, which the table as well, there is a 2-tile version of this, so if you want to do it on like a smaller, you know, desk area, you can do, but the actual table itself is just from base game. And yeah, I merge in the little bedside tables in a second and I make it just look like a really long desk. But the bookcases that I use in this room, I knew that I was going to use them when I found that picture on Pinterest. They're the ones that we got from the refined living room set. I actually used that set so much in this book. I say set, refined living room kit. It was one of the creator made kits because the Sims team are doing this thing now where they're collaborating with custom content creators, and basically the custom content creators will pretty much make the whole entire set and the Sims team will kind of like deliver it to us. The refined living room kit, not set, but you could also call it a set, is one of my favourite kits, and I just used it so much in this build. But yeah, coming into this office, I knew that I was going to use them bookcases, and then on the inside the bookcases I kind of like layered 2 between each other, and then I merged in a few different like head busts. I placed down a few different like sculptures and vases, a plant, and then something as well that I placed down very mindfully in the bookcase, which you can see I also placed down a version of it over here, is some books that seem to have maybe like interior styles on the inside of them, because basically from the refined living room set we have these 2 different book decorations alongside with an actual bookcase, but the actual clutter pieces itself, the books, like the front cover has like a little, I don't know if it's a lounge chair or if it's meant to be a dining room chair or something, but in my mind I was thinking that one of the Sims that lives in this house is an interior decorator and this is their home office. And so on the bookcase, it might be a little bit hard to see as I'm spinning the camera, but hopefully you can notice it in the screenshots, but I placed down these clutter objects that looks like interior design books, and it goes so perfectly with the idea that yeah, one of the Sims that lives in this home is an interior designer. I rarely ever seem to do houses for Sims that I imagine to be interior designers, and it sounds really silly, but the thing is, in the game, I'm so worried of saying a certain Sim is an interior designer and then them maybe not potentially end up liking the house that I actually built for them themselves. But I feel like with this house, it's so cool and it's so trendy, and I feel like yeah, an interior designer could definitely live here. And so that is one of the Sims that I imagine lives in this house. And then the second Sim, their husband, I was thinking it could be a scientist, because we are in the world of Oasis Springs, and to me that just, it makes a bit of sense. But either way, moving over, as you can see, I've now started coming in and decorating the second bathroom. Now, for this room, it's very similar to the ensuite downstairs, but this is the one where we have an actual, you know, like shower area, because the shower that I merged into the bathtub in the ensuite bathroom, like I said, it was purely for like decorational purposes, which actually really got me thinking. I would really want a shower and bath combo in the game that is a bathtub with a shower attached to it, but it has no curtain. Because the thing is, in the game we have, I think, around about 4 different shower and bath combos, but all of them have like a default curtain, which can kind of make it a little bit hard to use in certain builds, especially one like this. And so one thing that is kind of on my wish list, if you want to put it that way, for the game is, yeah, just to have a shower and a bath combo but not have a shower curtain, and then we can kind of design our own curtains. I just feel like for usability, I would use so many more shower and bath combos that way, because typically with some of the ones that we've got in the game, where they're so kind of like stylized to a certain style or a certain theme or something, when it comes around to doing different bathrooms to what they're meant to be used in, it can just be a little bit tricky. And so yeah, when I was doing this build, it was one thing that really got me thinking, and I feel like I have some custom content of that, and so I don't think it'll be too hard to make in the game. But I mean, I don't really know. But either way, in here, as you can see, I'm actually just pretty much finishing up this bathroom, but I use a lot of the same bathroom items that I use downstairs in the ensuite. So I use the same bathtub, the one that I use from base game, and then I use the sleek bathroom sink. I just merged in two together, and then the same toilet and then shower. And then also as well, with the sink unit, if you saw me get a divider and then rotate it and merge it underneath the sink unit, it's still fully functional, like that still works 100%. I just don't like the way that when you layer them particular sinks that we've got from the sleek bathroom kit, how you can see the exact same object is kind of like duplicated over. And so a little handy trick, whenever I use them, if I do use two, I'll just get a divider and then kind of disguise it in a way to make it look like it's built into a cabinet, and yeah, it still fully works. But now moving on, as you can see, I've started coming in and decorating the first teens room, which I was personally picturing would be a boys' room. So the way that I kind of approached both of the teens rooms in this house is I still wanted them to be mid-century, but then also have a little bit of personality shining through. For this particular teenager, I was thinking that they're really into both books and then also music. And so currently, you can see on the wall, I've tried my hand at trying to make a vinyl in the game, because I was, again, looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest. I'll find it, pop it up on the screen, so you can kind of see what I was referencing. But in the game, surprisingly enough, we don't actually have a singular vinyl decoration. We have some posters that we got from the high school years expansion pack, and they have vinyl stickers almost. They're not even vinyls, they literally just look like a sticker on a wall, but I didn't want to use them ones because they're quite stylized in a way, and some of them have like lightning bolts and clouds in them. I just wanted a plain old record player, and so, or I say record player, a plain old vinyl for a record player. And so the way that I tried to make it look like there was one on the wall is I've got this one wall vent from the 4 rent expansion pack, got a plain bog standard black one. I then, luckily enough, had a different colour swatch of the same item, just in a red swatch, and so then I end up rotating it 180 degrees because there's some weird shadow around it, and kind of pulling it away from the wall to make it look like, yeah, a little vinyl. And I mean, it's not perfect, but I feel like you could look at that and quite easily realise that I was trying to make it look like there's some sort of vinyl on the wall. And something that I do want to do now, that I've kind of like figured out this kind of, I don't want to say trick, but kind of like useful way of trying to make it look like there's vinyls on the wall, is if you wanted to, you could definitely have multiple different vinyls kind of like scattered about, or maybe you want to have maybe like a trio of them going upwards to downwards, and you could change the interior vent. The one that I've used in this bedroom, like I said, I just used a red vent in there inside of like a black vent, but you could change the red to make it look like the vinyl's got like a yellow sticker, or maybe like a blue or a white sticker, and then you could have like multiple different vinyls on the wall. I just feel like it's very teenagery in a way. I don't know if it's just because when I was growing up, I was maybe about 15, maybe 16, I did actually have myself a trio of 3 different vinyls going like upwards to downwards on my bedroom walls. I have never owned a record player in my life. It was because we was clearing out a relative's home, and basically they had so many vinyls, and it was just basically if you want it you could have it. And I was about 15, 16 years old. I thought, you know what, that'd be really cool for a wall decoration. And so in my 15, 16-year-old bedroom, I had a bunch of records hung on the wall. Couldn't tell you the artist, but actually fairly recently I got my first ever record myself that I bought, and funny enough, it's a Sims record. I keep on saying record when I mean vinyl, but I don't know if it's just because my mum and dad call them records. But either way, recently I got my first ever vinyl. It is literally the Sims vinyl. There was this limited thing where there was a certain amount of vinyls on this website. It was very much like Sims Indoors, they tweeted about it. I saw it and I thought, you know what, one day I am going to have a record player, and I would love nothing more than to blast the Sims 2 soundtrack on that record player as the first thing that I play. And so I bought a vinyl, and it's just sitting in my wardrobe. I don't have a record player, but if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen this because I did post about it when I got it. But yeah, really cool. I've got this green vinyl just sitting in my wardrobe waiting to be used. But either way, sorry, that was completely besides the point. Getting back to the build, as you can see, I'm coming in and just placing down so many different random knickknacks to try and make this room really feel like a teenager space. I placed down some skateboards onto the wall. I also placed down a little clothes rail in the corner. The clothes rail isn't usable because I kind of purposely blocked it up with loads of different like clutter pieces. It was more so for the decoration of having a clothes rail in this bedroom, but there is a walk-in wardrobe on the other side of the wall, one of their big get-together ones, and so your Sims can still change their clothes, but just not via the clothes rail, just because yeah, I just purely wanted it for kind of like the aesthetic of having one in the room. But one thing that I did want to mention is I did decide to add in a guitar into that bedroom, but I did it off camera. And so if you download this build, you might notice there is quite a retro looking, I think it's a electric red guitar. But either way, moving over, I've now started coming in and decorating the next teen's room, which I tried to make into a plant loving sim. I mean, of course, both for this room but then also for the other room that I just decorated, any Sims could kind of sleep in this room. This could be any type of Sims room, but when I decorate, it's kind of like a little bit easier sometimes to have a particular theme or hobby or skill that I'm decorating towards. And yeah, for this room, I just thought this girl that sleeps in there, she loves a plant. And so you'll see I end up trying to incorporate lots of different like hanging seeding plants, loads of different like little potted plants and cactuses and just random little like knickknacks of plants in this room. One thing that I was really excited to use was these seeding lights. You can see that I've draped over the bed. They are from the High School Years expansion pack and I love them, but they are so hard to use in builds normally because typically when I do teens rooms, I always try and make it so Sims can get round to either sides of the bed, because for me, gameplay, Sims, they like to mess around, and so it might just be quite handy. But for this room, I couldn't have really made it so Sims could get around either side of the bed if I still wanted there to be, you know, some sort of gameplay function in here, like a computer desk or something. And so I did shove the bed kind of like up against the wall, but then it gave me almost like the perfect opportunity to have these ceiling lights. I just draped them over the bed, and the bed itself, that is from the Businesses and Hobbies expansion pack, and something else actually that I use in this bedroom, which I rarely ever use. I'm not sure if I've even used it before, but it's this fireplace that we got from the Cozy Kitch kit. It's one of the few ones that we've got in the game where it looks like a fireplace, but there's actually no gameplay attached to it, because sometimes in my builds, if I have a chimney on the exterior but I don't necessarily want there to be a, you know, an actual fireplace on the inside of that room, I'll place down like a little fake mantelpiece to make it look like once upon a time there was a fireplace there, but it had just been taken out. And yeah, the one that we got from the Cozy Kitch kit, it's perfect because it's very like kitschy, very retro and a bit mid-century. It was just perfect for this room. But you can see on the kind of like bottom portion of it, I decided to place down some candles to kind of act like a fake fireplace. Weirdly enough, I kind of styled it around my own real life bedroom's fireplace, which sounds a certain way, but I live in a very old house in the British countryside, which I think was built a very long time before central heating was invented. And so I've got this like really ugly old black iron fireplace in my bedroom. And the way that I've decorated my own bedroom is I've gone for like white walls, cream carpet, a cream bed. The majority of my furniture is white. And so I've got this really just obvious black iron fireplace that has never worked, by the way. It probably did used to work back in the day, but it was a good 100 if not more years ago, well before we ever moved in. But I just kind of wanted it to feel a little bit more, I don't know, like my own space. And so in my own fireplace in my bedroom, yeah, I bought some fake flickering candles and I've shoved it into where I think you used to put coal in it. I don't think it was ever one of them fireplaces that you would put logs in. I think it was a coal fireplace. But then the actual like little mantelpiece where I've shoved these candles is very small. I don't know how they used to do it back in the day when this house was built, but either way, I basically styled the fireplace in that bedroom off my real life one, and yeah, I really like it. So much so I've got it in real life. But either way, as you would have seen, I finished off that bedroom. I also ended up placing down a clothes rail into that room as well, but then you might have noticed I placed down a pet bed in front of it. Now I forgot to mention it, but when I was building this house, I was personally imagining that this household would have maybe 1 or potentially 2 different cats. I was thinking the first cat would be a hairless cat, and then the second cat would be a Siamese cat. Is that how you pronounce it? Beautiful looking cat. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. I must admit, a cat is just a cat to me. I could tell you a dog breed, like click of a finger, but I don't know cats. Cats are just cats to me. But yeah, I was imagining that this household did have cats, and so I did place down a little pet bed in front of the teen girls' clothes rail. But when it came around to gameplay and like the functionality of this build, I then realised that my sim couldn't change their clothes with the pet bed there, and so I did decide to delete it. But maybe the cats sleep on the sofa or something. Must admit, in my own gameplay, my current household, I've got a dog. Dog never goes to bed, just sleeps on either the sofa or the floor by my Sims, which is actually really sweet if you think about it, because my Sims dog Milo is always by my Sim when they go to sleep, and I just love that because that is like my real life dog. He always just, he wants to be where you are. But either way, besides the point, moving over, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last room in this house, which is the garage. This is that retro fridge that I was talking about, and so I was thinking that maybe they really wanted to have this in their kitchen, but then to kind of add a little bit of functionality and a little bit of gameplay to the garage, it might be quite fun to place down this old broken kind of like grubby fridge into the garage space, and then through gameplay, if you want to, yeah, your Sims can restore it and then eventually pop it into the kitchen. But other than that, I'm going to go around this space, finish it off by adding in a few other details, but that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is Jessicapie, or just search for the hashtag Jessicapie or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.